Before we start off the video, I just want to take a moment to say rest in peace to the real-life grass wonder who passed away today on the 8th of August 2025 after living a long life of 30 years. I hope you all do a commemorative run with her in honor of the passing, if you have grass wonder that is, I suppose. But onto the topic of today though, Champions Meeting, specifically the Taurus Cup, which is just over a week away now. Firstly, if you weren't already interested in Champions Meeting for fear of having to get involved with the PvP, well, I'll show you the different rewards that you can get for participating. And then I'll also show you how to prepare for this upcoming race specifically, as well as the results of some testing that I did to show you what type of competition that you can probably expect to see during the event. First off, what is Champions Meeting? Well, right off the bat, you'll be given the decision to choose between either the Open League or the Graded League. The Open League will have a rank restriction on it, so only trainees of B rank or below can participate, while the Graded League is basically anything goes. So after selecting a league, there are 3 rounds. The first 2 rounds each being 2 days long, where each day you get 3 free attempts to race. And then each attempt consists of 5 total races. Now ideally you win at least 3 of these 5 races in any singular attempt to progress to the Group A bracket during the next round. Think of Group A as the winner's bracket. If your best is only 2 wins or less in all of your attempts, then you'll be placed in Group B brackets. In the final round, it's all down to one singular race where you will come in first, second, or third. Now, although it might seem like the Open League is the place to go if you're struggling to make really good trainees, since after all, you don't have to worry about facing any A+ trainees, you can actually get much better rewards from the Graded League than the Open League. For example, if you take part in the Graded League and you are only ever able to win once in all of your attempts in round 1 and 2, and then you come in last place in the finals of the Group B, so like the losers bracket, that will get you 1 Uma ticket, 1 support ticket, 700 carats, 10 goddess statues, and then some upgrade materials. Meanwhile, if you were to win 3 or more times in both rounds and winning the finals in the Open League, that'll get you 3 tickets for supports and Umas each, and only 300 more carats and about 10 more goddess statues, which isn't that much of an increase considering how much more you have to win for that. But now let's say you participate in the Graded League and you can make it all the way to the Bracket A finals, so that's winning 3 or more races in Phase 1 and Phase 2 in one of your attempts each. Even losing there in the finals gets you the same amount as winning the maximum rewards in the Open League, with the potential for nearly twice as much carats if you do manage to win in the finals there. Alright, so hopefully by now I've ignited that fire within you to want to win these races. Now then, what do you need to do to know about specifically the Taurus Cup? Firstly, the race is a medium distance 2,400 meter long course at Tokyo during spring on firm ground on a left-handed track. So from this already, we have a bunch of useful information. So we can do career runs with these things in mind to try and make trainees fine-tuned for this specific race. So for example, now you can grab things like firm conditions, left-handed, and Tokyo racecourse. These green skills add a small flat amount of stats to the relevant stat, and they can, technically speaking, let you go beyond the 1,200 point stat cap if you are maxed out naturally already. We can also try to get lucky with inheritance for turf and medium aptitudes to get them to S rank, by selecting legacies that have sparks for these aptitudes where possible. An S rank in turf will provide a slight boost to your acceleration, while an S rank in medium will provide a slight boost to your speed. The strategy aptitude isn't as important though, as that just dictates how well the trainee runs in that position. So for example, knowing when to overtake and whatnot. Now, one important thing to note is that although this is a medium race course, this is a 2,400 meter long race, one of the longest medium races out there. So it's almost on par with some long races actually. If it were 100 meters longer, it would be classified as long. And so as such, you will want to have a good amount of stamina for this race. And on top of that, you'll also want to try and get some good recovery skills, especially if people are going to be running around with their evil natures trying to debuff you. Gold recovery skills, of course, are going to be significantly better than the regular white skill versions, so you should try to aim for these where possible. I'm sure you're all well aware of the Swing Maestro skill that you can get from Super Creek, but another good option is the Breath of Fresh Air skill, which technically speaking, anyone can get access to, since during the URA career, you could randomly get the event Best Foot Forward, where selecting the bottom option gives you a hint for the Breath of Fresh Air skill. But of course, it's not a train smash if you don't happen to get all of these different things lining up like the Breath of Fresh Air or the aptitude increases or whatnot. It's more of just a nice bonus thing to have. Next up, we're going to go super in depth with not just the type of race, but the racetrack itself. This is the Tokyo race course that you will be racing on. It starts out with a straightaway, then as you approach the middle part of the race, you enter a corner, and as you exit that corner, you have a long straightaway where there is a short uphill and then downhill along that stretch, and then one last big corner as you transition from the middle of the race to the final leg of the race, and then you have the final straightaway to the finish line. Now, the most important part about this track is that the final corner happens to line up with the final part of this race, or in other words, late race. And this is the point in the race where all of the Uma Musume will now try to make their big push for the finish line. And because they start this final push on a corner, there are two unique skills that are amazing for this track. That is Taiki Shuttle's Shooting for Victory and Maruzensky's Red Shift. These skills are good for two reasons. The first is that they both increase acceleration, which is incredibly important, and we'll go over the reasons why in just a second. But the other reason why these two skills are good is that they activate on the final corner, which again means they will be activating during the late part of the race. You see, activating skills at the right time is really important, as mistiming these skills could lead to them having close to no effect. A good example of this is Straightaway Adept, which increases your speed on a straightaway, which most races will start on. Do you really need to try and increase that target speed when you're just starting out the race? You are already trying to speed up. This is why things like Swing Maestro or Professor of Curvature are so universally loved, because not only are they just good skills in general, they are consistent skills activating when you want them to. But coming back to Maruzensky and Taiki's skills, an example of these skills being worse on some racetracks is, let's say there's a track where you enter a final corner in the middle of the race. Maruzensky and Taiki's skills would then activate here, but this is the middle of the race. They're not really making that big push where they want to speed up at the end. So the acceleration boost that they get doesn't really benefit them if they're already running at what they think is meant to be their max speed that they should be running at. If you've ever done a run with Maruzensky herself, you may have seen this example where her skill will activate, but it doesn't really look like she's speeding up that much. But coming back to why these being acceleration skills are so important, looking at the different stages of the race, early, middle, and late, all of the Uma Musume will naturally want to speed up at different points of the race, with early race being the slowest, the middle part of the race being a little bit faster, and then the final leg of the race being the fastest. So as you're entering this final corner and the final leg of the race, your trainees will already be wanting to speed up. And to help them reach these higher speeds, you want to provide them with acceleration, with skills that boost acceleration as well, like the previously mentioned Red Shift or Shooting for Victory. You of course also want to make sure that they have enough stamina to make this last push, as well as the power to actually have the physical strength to have their own natural acceleration. But something to be a little careful of is to not overvalue the velocity increasing skills. There are two types of speed. There's current speed and then there is target speed. And likewise, there are two buffs, ones that buff current speed and ones that buff target speed. But here's the catch when it comes to speed skills. Pretty much all of the speed increasing skills available in global right now buff your target speed, not your current speed. There are skills that do buff current speed, but these come out much later with new support cards and characters in the JP version. So it is entirely possible that if you are lacking the acceleration to reach these increased target speeds, some of these speed increasing skills could essentially have no effect. Another great example is how many times have you seen Homestretch Haste activate in the final stretch, but you don't really feel like you're going that much faster? The best way to describe it is honestly to think of an actual real life race. If you are tired in the final stretch and your coach is yelling at you to run faster, but you literally cannot, there's not much that you can do about that, right? As for some other course specific things to look out for, there is a slight uphill and then downhill about halfway through the course. This is another great point to trigger some recovery skills if you have them, like for example, Goldchip's Potential 5 skill, Go Home Specialist. Now, in all of these races, you get to field a team of 3 trainees. One recommendation is to not have all 3 be the same strategy. So don't have all 3 of them be pace chasers or late surgers or front runners or whatever. This is because if they are all the same strategy type, a single debuff that targets that group, for example a front runner debuff, will now hit all 3 of your trainees. And now with Goldchip Week essentially giving everyone a free 3-star Goldchip, you can probably expect to see her a lot. Especially because since she usually runs as an end closer, she can likely try to dodge some of the debuffs from Nice Nature or some other big skills like Dominator, since these all target runners ahead of the user. Now, I know that there's been a lot of discussion about debuffers like Nice Nature, but as a reminder, these stamina debuffs only really work if you are low enough on stamina that it actually hinders you. If you have more than enough stamina, or maybe if you think that your opponents will have more than enough stamina, to the point where running a debuffer doesn't really hinder them, you could honestly consider dropping the 1 debuffer 2 runner strategy and just field out 3 different runners that you are confident in. Remember, you are not locked into using the same 3 trainees throughout the entire event. If you try something out at first and then see that it doesn't do well, you're more than welcome to train up somebody else and then try out a different option. And now lastly, if you're curious about the types of competition that you'll be put up against, I did some test races myself using the public room matches. Now, to be fair though, these will be very heavily biased, as the people who would be going out of their way to test their trainees in custom rooms are probably on the higher end of people that are competitive, min-maxes and whatnot, right? So think of these results as the higher echelon of the types of races that you could expect to see if you make it all the way to the Bracket A finals in the graded league, as opposed to say the group stage rounds leading up to it. As expected, in pretty much every single race, there were pretty much 3 debuffers. And also, in every race, almost everyone had inherited Maruzensky's red shift skill. Naturally, of course, everyone had their speed stats pumped up through the roof with Swing Maestro 2, so once again keep an eye out on that Super Creek banner that's coming out in a few days. Some interesting takeaways though that I found in these races were, and again, this is a very biased set of tests, so I'm not saying that this will be absolutely true, but at least from these tests, it looked like frontrunners very rarely placed first, except for when it was Maruzensky herself. And this kind of makes sense because, firstly, frontrunners will very easily get hit by almost all debuffs out there, since they will be ahead of runners who will have those debuffs, like Dominator or Mystifying Murmur. There were plenty of Mihono Bourbons with Redshift inherited, but when you inherit a unique skill, don't forget that the strength and duration of the effect are reduced. The other thing I noticed during some of the races is that at the end of the day, luck is still a big factor, specifically when it comes to things like late starts and skills not activating. But again, this is why thankfully in rounds 1 and 2, you have multiple attempts where each attempt gives you 5 races. But again though, don't let these stat lines scare you. A lot of these were Umas trained with stacked out max limit break support cards, Skittis on blacks, Super Creeks and whatnot. The actual competition that you can expect to face will likely be much more tamer. A somewhat better example will be comparing how well your medium races do in team trials, as that is a better simulation for random matchmaking with other trainers. But otherwise though, that is pretty much everything that you need to know about the upcoming Taurus Cup Champions meeting. Hopefully you learned something new today, and if you did, liking, commenting and subscribing is greatly appreciated. And so, I wish you all the best of luck in the upcoming event, and until next time, bye bye!